let's do it then.
Wow.
Metal.
Back again. 87. Getting close to 100, Josh.
Yeah, man. We're gonna plan something special for 100, maybe.
Yeah, probably just 5 people on talking over each other.
That'd be awesome.
That's probably what it's gonna be.
Well, after several years of negotiation, we're finally able to
Josh, you're
Off in
breaking
Trouble
up, pal.
live show. So we're really psyched to have you, dude.
Oh, thank you very much. Good to be here.
Yeah, man. I know a lot of people are excited to talk to you, so this will be a fun show. But first of all, how's life? How's everything going after Worlds and all that?
Life for me is great. You know, fortunately, I got good business, so life's pretty easy for me. But as far as Worlds goes, I came back from Worlds pretty pissed off.
Ooh.
And but that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've been training 3 times a day since I got back.
So a nice motivated pissed off.
Oh yeah, nice motivated pissed off.
Good. So what did you pull in Worlds?
Well, I ended up pulling the 198 Grandmasters, but you know I didn't even know I was going to pull until about 2 weeks before.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going no matter what to the Worlds just for a vacation with my wife. And what had happened is I guess Scott Wynn decided not to go. Spot was open. I said I'd fill it. I hadn't trained in 2 years since I tore my shoulder in Malaysia. And so I entered. And I should have done better.
I feel the same way, Bob. I made the gold medal. I think it was either Kathy's gold medal or Alan's gold medal. I made that the screensaver on my phone, so every time I turn it on, I have to look at it. Because I feel like, dude, I really want to do better next year too, man.
There you go.
Assuming we're able to even go, hopefully we'll be able to go. We'll see if that visa thing turns out to be a red herring or what, but
I think it'll be fine.
I hope you're right. That's what Leonard said too. Leonard said, "Don't worry about it." That there was a similar situation for Brazil a few years back, and everybody was able to go. So I'm trying to be optimistic about it. Exactly. A lot of people saying hi. Luke is watching, and Badger, and John Cervantes, Derek Smith. A lot of people waving hello and happy to see you on the show. So
hello.
We'll see if we can keep them interested for a little while. You'll have to be in charge of that, Bob, because John Brown and I are awfully boring people. It's just the way it is. So
we'll see where the conversation goes.
We'll see where it goes. So I was telling John about some of the conversations we had in Budapest, sitting at those Hungarian restaurants, and just about like arm wrestling and arm wrestling training. And obviously, that's why we started the show in the first place, because we were always sitting around asking, "Gee, I wonder what they do. I wonder what this guy does." So now we get to talk to people and find out about it. But anyway, I think listening to you, to me, was very educational, and I was telling people that I learned a great deal from you and Engen in particular in conversations that we had. So I just wanted to give that knowledge to some other people by bringing you on the show. So no pressure, but I want you to do the exact same conversation you had with me, word for word. Okay, go.
Yeah, right. Well, typically, I always get asked, what's the secret to getting strong? I want to win Worlds next year. How do I do it?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The absolute truth is I don't care what kind of training you do. Don't ever stop training and don't get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds so simple and it's so hard. I guarantee you could take anybody walking the streets and they could just, arm wrestle once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. And that's all they ever did, right? And if they did that for years, for a few years, if they never got hurt, I guarantee you he would be a force on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Controversially, you take a guy who has never been on a table in his life but has lived in the gym, therefore probably not be getting hurt in the gym. Most guys don't get hurt in the gym per se, they get hurt on the table.
Sure.
You take that guy and he'll get crazy strong and transfer that to the table. I mean, look at guys like Richard Lupkes. Richard Lupkes never practices, ever. He's a freight train, right? He's just, because he's a gym rat. The dude has never left the gym, you know? So, I mean, that's the real truth. Now, if you want to go from being an average arm wrestler to an elite arm wrestler, and when I refer to the word elite arm wrestler, I'm talking to the guys that are getting top 5 in the worlds, or you know, the John Brzezinks, the Todd Hutchinses, you know, the guys that don't bother going to the worlds, but we know they're all elite guys.
Sure.
If you want to get to that level, then you need to understand a little more about your training. Some of it is genetics. Some of it isn't, you know. A lot of it, some of it's technique. You know, my buddy Robert Baxter, when he first started, you know, everybody beat him. And there were so many times where he's like, okay, if you get me in this position, how do I win? Well, you get stronger, because if I get you in that position, you're going to lose.
Sure.
So just get stronger. You know, and most people don't want to hear that. But at the end of the day, this sport is all about strength.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before too, Bob, where, you know, you made the comment of you spent so much time in your early years perfecting technique to be exactly what you needed it to be, that you maybe spent a little less time than you should have on getting strong.
Oh, I absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And ironically, the year when I finally decided, okay, I need to start working on my hook and my strength, was the first year I popped my elbow. And then, you know, had problems after that, you know, which is why my arm is, you know, I've popped my elbow, I don't know, 20, 30 times now, you know, in my life, and which is why my arm's all messed up as well.
When you're saying pop your elbow, do you mean pop a ligament probably, or?
You're on a nerve. Well, the ligament between your down by your funny bone, it's between your radial and your ulna in your forearm. It's the pop in the elbow that every single one of us has experienced.
Yeah, sure.
Like we've all had it, right?
Yeah.
You know. Because exactly like you can walk too far out on someone's hand and lose all of your leverage, and you find yourself wanting to be back in the hook because you've lost all your hand leverage.
Yeah, which is why a lot of the times, even though you're higher in someone's hand, a double cap is not the way you want to go. You're not really controlling them.
That you're exactly right. Traditionally, you really only want a double cap if you're really wanting to wrench on that person's thumb.
Yeah,
which is a viable technique. I mean,
Yes.
that's a viable technique.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that wins is in my opinion, a valid technique.
Yeah, and if I have,
So I don't mean to be rude, you guys, but we dropped audio for about a minute there when you were talking about the Jerry Cadorette stuff, which was awesome. So I would like you to get back to that. Go back over that when you get a chance, Bob, because that was gold.
Just the part about the position to be in when pulling
Exactly.
in Jerry Cadorette style.
Yeah.
So a lot of people end up, Jerry's flopped back like this, driving straight down, and you're in this position down, low, and your wrist is overpronated. That you want to straighten your wrist out and force your elbow forward. That way, all his pressure is coming down your forearm. When you're like this, it's coming down on your bicep.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes down your forearm, all his pressure will go away. Now, that's assuming you have the strength to stop that move anyway. But as soon as all that pressure goes down your forearm, it makes it much easier to rotate behind and press yourself.
Exactly.
And I had two guys that I learned 70% of my technique from top rolling. And there are two guys you've probably never heard of.
From New Jersey?
From New Jersey. Well, maybe, yeah, good point. Mickey Buckus and Gordon Griffith.
Oh, I don't know who Gordon.
Mickey Buckus.
I know Mickey.
Okay.
I remember Mickey.
And
I know
the
Mickey
reason-
well.
Right. Now, those guys never taught me anything directly to me, but they were both Jerry Cadorette style pullers.
Yeah.
Or you could take their hand, and I don't think I've ever lost to either one of them, but it was like on the job training. Okay, I had to try 57 different. I'd finish them this way the first time, and I'd have to finish them a different way the second time, and there's like 37 different ways to try to finish someone with a flopped hand, but you need to have the strength to hold them up in the first place. Otherwise, you're just screwed, because that move is pretty devastating.
Yeah, and
Oh
not
my
only do you
God,
need to
yeah.
have the power to do it, you need to have the confidence to do it too, because it's not exactly, even the thought of it is not exactly comfortable when you're sitting in front of there and you can feel this guy's tricep and side pressure pressing down on your arm.
Exactly.
Didn't you have a conversation with John Brzezinski about that very subject?
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Pulling Jerry. It
So
took a while
Jerry
to convince him. Go ahead.
Well, I'm still not sure I did convince him. So I hold on one second here. So I said, John, slide your elbow forward, stand your arm up, and he's like, you don't know what it's like to have that kind of pressure on you. And I'm like, I know exactly what it's like to have that kind of pressure on me. Not the pressure of a Jerry Cadorette, but the pressure of someone who's
In relative.
forcing me
It's
in relative.
Right.
Right.
And so we were in practice afterwards here at the house, and I said, all right, you be Jerry Cadorette, I'll be you.
Mm-hmm.
Now start pushing, don't crush me, because he could have just crushed me. And I straightened my wrist out, I slid my elbow forward, and all of his pressure went down my elbow, and I was able to rotate. And, that's just, what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, sometimes you need to really just have the balls to do it. And then once you're there, you're like, oh, thank God I had the balls to do this. Like once you do it once.
Yes, exactly. Every top roller in the world runs to the back of the pad with their elbow, or most of them. They're just top rolling, which means I'm getting away from you. I'm running to the back of the pad.
Right, I need back pressure.
Well, you don't necessarily back pressure. Get the elbow further to the back. Well, the reality is that elbow, once you have control of that hand and the match is stopped, now you're looking. If you have control of the hand, now you're looking for height. So you need to throw your elbow back forward to get height.
Post,
Height
right.
is leverage.
Right, and really,
My honey's home.
And you really don't have to worry too about doing all that, rotation, rowing, all that kind of stuff that we traditionally do as top rowers, because the guy's doing it for you if he's going to flop.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
Hey, John, let's queue up those 2 matches I sent you, because actually in one of them, Bob does exactly what he just told us about.
All right.
Oh,
We're going to embarrass you a little bit, show a couple matches that you had, and you can talk us through them if you like. One of them, the video's not so great, but it's really such an amazing match. I said, let's try.
Is it sit down in the Worlds? Will I be able to see it?
Yeah,
you will.
Oh, okay.
Hold on 1 second, sir. Yeah, I think
one of them is from Worlds, and one of them is from Nevada, I think.
Yeah, one of them is actually the A1 tournament.
Yeah, A1, yes, not Worlds.
So can you see that, Bob?
Yeah, I see something versus Bob Brown. Yeah.
Here she comes, Rassam Pro. It's nice to be featured on this on that site too. Remember this match?
Oh, yeah, I remember. This is left-handed. Yep.
2014, I believe it said.
Yeah, 14 or 15. I was there a couple years in a row. So let's see here. Man, I'm a handsome guy, huh? So there, I'm keeping my wrist straight.
Driving the elbow forward.
Actually, you know what actually is going on right at this moment? My left elbow is killing me. That's what was going on right at that moment. That's why I wasn't going to the side yet.
Right, and here I can just see that you have just a hell of a strap set up. You're just kind of hanging back on it.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, your knuckles are down, your knuckles are down. Well, that's because I want them down in this particular instance.
Right, you have all that pressure on the lower part of the strap.
Right.
It's completely different once you got them in straps.
Yeah, because then my hand, a lot of elbow pain comes from gripping with the hand. And when I'm gripping just this thumb, my hand is killing me, or my elbow is killing me. So once you're in the straps, it kind of helps protect the pain.
Gotcha.
So I feel better. So the screen looks all weird now.
Oh, does it really?
Well, I think John's going to play another video, so maybe.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
When we, we're figured this tech stuff that we're doing, nobody else does on Facebook, so we're like always trying to figure it out as we go along. And that's why sometimes we like lose audio, or sometimes one of us sounds like an alien or what have you. But,
Yeah, remember that whole on-the-job training thing? We're gonna do it.
on the job.
Exactly.
This is a great match. You remember this one?
I can't see it.
Oh, really?
It's going to be kind of hard for you to comment on if you can't see
Yeah.
it.
Bob, go ahead. You're on the iPad, right?
Yeah.
Hit your home button on the bottom, and then hit the Skype button again. We'll drop off for a second, but you'll come right back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I see
You
it.
can see it now.
There we go.
I fixed it, Josh.
See? On the job training.
Oh. This is
an
overall.
Yep.
Yep.
I've pulled like 7 matches in a row, and this is the last one. Yeah, like at this point, I'm already very, very tired.
Of course.
Like, I remember this. Yeah, I had just pulled 4 or 5 guys, one of which was Robbie Burnett, and
Ooh, that's a big.
Robbie Burnett beat me in the overall, but I won 2 or 3 different weight classes in that event. So I got to go again, and then I beat him and continued on in the overall.
Nice. See,
So here, obviously, we're strapped up. I forget if I top roll him or hook him here, honestly.
I just watched it, but I won't give it away.
Okay.
I thought it was a very impressive match. That's why I said we got to watch this one, even though the person who's doing the camera work gets so excited at one point of the match that you could only see like the very edge of it. But then they bring it back in, so just so you know, that's not our fault.
Yeah. Well, this was, I was 176 pounds in this one.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
Well,
I love that,
Starts in
man.
a top roll. Starts in a top roll. That's some slick strap pulling right there, Bob. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That was a great hit.
And right here, I was like, you know, when I was top rolling him, I was really just trying to burn him out. And then I realized, okay, he's not going to burn out.
Yeah. Boom.
I better hook him. And knife him
I like
down.
that transition. That was a great transition. Do you feel, obviously you felt pretty strong in a hook, and is that something that you keep in the toolbox just in case?
When my elbow's healthy, I can pull it out of the toolbox, which is a very rare day anymore. My arm is very beat up. I've nearly become a one hit. I've got my one move, and that's the only one that's really strong anymore. So,
well,
should I reset this thing again? Because I can't see John.
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
Let's see.
So, what do you see? You've arm wrestled at all kinds of different weights. What do you think is the weight you feel the strongest at?
Well, the strongest or the best in relation to my opponent?
Let me put it this way. Which weight class do you prefer to arm wrestle at?
If I could wake up tomorrow and weigh anything I want, I would weigh 165 tomorrow, and I'd arm wrestle in the 154s.
Nice.
Because that's where I used to always walk around 165, 170, even though something like that, and I'd arm wrestle those weight classes or higher, and then when I wanted to go to something really big, I'd diet down to the 54s.
Okay.
So right now, I'm hoping that I can get my diet in check and get back down to the 65s.
What is your biggest struggle at this point in terms of training and all that? And is it the weight or is it health as far as like your joints and these kind of things?
Yeah, my diet, health.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to eat clean, but I really don't. And, our food is so terrible in this country. You have chronic joint problems, and I just need to clean up what I eat. My joints are the worst.
What class do you think you'll pull next year if you go back?
My goal is 165 Grandmaster.
Wow.
I think it will be harder to make the weight than to win the tournament.
Well, that's might be very true.
That's actually probably a pretty legit prediction, because it's so much harder to lose weight as we get older, and especially if you're going to cut 10 pounds or what have you, it's going to be
30.
tough. Or 30. Yeah, well, you're going to lose some of them by eating all the salad.
You mean cut it? Yeah, no, I'll cut the last 10, the night before.
Here's an interesting question from Michael Hand, who has come to Worlds several years in a row as a great puller. He wants you to compare and contrast the style of Crazy George and Pascal.
It's the same style.
There you go.
It's not a style. It's a joint lock that no one wants to hear about.
Are you trying to say it's basically a parlor trick?
But here's the thing about the bent elbow. First of all, I have the same bent elbow myself.
Right.
I have, it all started with Crazy George, right? And I've never had a problem with Crazy George winning, ever. I think George is a great guy, and it's never bothered me that he wins or how he wins. What bugs me is when people start to worship him as having an unbelievable, a really powerful, strong hold, or having unbelievable, incredible endurance, which, he would not be able to do what he does if it wasn't for his arm not going straight. And same with other pullers. I've experienced it myself. I have been in matches where they were real long matches, and I feel that I was holding them up with just strength. And then we kind of got, we're in a hook, and we kind of got stretched out a little bit, and all of a sudden, I felt that, oh man, I'm really tired, but this guy's not moving me. And in the middle of the match, all of a sudden, I literally stopped arm wrestling and relaxed my arm, and he still couldn't move it. And I was like, whoa. And I just, and I leaned to the left and I pinned him.
Right.
You know, so, I mean, take it for what it's, I think guys like George are puzzles. They're just a puzzle to be figured out. And I was supposed to pull George back in 2006 or 7 for a couple grand after the Arnold.
Yeah.
And after we were set to do it, we put our arms up against the wall to see whose was bent worse.
Right.
His was bent, you know, much worse than mine. And then after the Arnolds, we both decided we were too tired and neither one of us wanted to do it.
Yeah, you know, it's you know, I've heard even people, I can't think of any names, but I've heard like people even saying like, oh, it's not he can actually straighten his arm if he really wants to. I've heard these things too, and it's like it's absurd to say that.
Yeah, right.
The guy can't.
Show me.
Yeah, the guy clearly can't. He walks around like this. I mean, it's like almost 90 these days.
I had a guy when I got into CrossFit. I'm in the CrossFit gym and I'm deadlifting, and the CrossFit coach comes up to me and he says, "Now, Bob, I know you're strong, but if you straighten your arm, you'll do better at deadlifting." And I was like, "Well, that's as straight as that arm goes. I don't think about it. That's all it goes."
Right.
Know?
They must have hated your dead hang pull-ups.
Yeah, that wasn't. Yeah, when CrossFit did a story on me one time, and there's a whole thing about my arm not going straight inside there.
Oh.
It's funny. It's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to Pascal Girard, do you think that his is basically an arm lock driven technique as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I know people don't want to hear that, but whatever, you know. And Pascal's probably swearing up and down, no, 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 and you know, yes, yes, yes.
Right.
You know, how does someone, like going back to Crazy George, how does someone have the strength to stop Travis Badgen, stop, you know, Fisher in his prime,
Earl Wilson,
stop all the Artem Tainoff, all these monsters, right? How does he have the strength to stop them and then grab an absolute amateur and not be able to just flash him?
No, totally. Right.
You know, but that's enough ill of the dead.
No, well, yeah, I mean, listen,
not the dead.
The guy has some.
Well, it's a technique we talk about all the time on here. I mean, Michael Todd.
It's a great technique. It's a legitimate technique. I applaud it. If you can do it, do it.
Right. You know, it's an issue where, you know, most people would consider that person completely disabled. You know, I mean, in everyday life, people go, "Oh my God, you can't what? You can't close your arm that much.
Right.
You can't open it that much." You know, and this person stands up there, and participates within the rules of our sport, and people can't pin him. You know, and then you do find people who can pin him, and you know, I mean, there's plenty of video of Anthony Delantonio. There's plenty of video of him pinning him. There's good video of Devin pinning Michael Todd. All these things have been figured out. It's just that people continue to pick the exact wrong move to try and pin these guys.
I agree. Once you solve that puzzle, I don't think it's going to be very hard to stop.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that kills me is when people just they line up with George, and they just go, if I just go sideways harder than last time, I'm gonna win.
Yeah.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
That's a mistake Corey Miller made.
Yes. Corey did make that mistake.
And he almost pinned him, and it's actually exactly what you said, John. He's like, all I need to do is get an extra half inch, and that's the half inch you're not getting in that direction.
That's right.
So it doesn't matter how many times you try.
And to that point, Corey is way strong enough to beat him.
Way.
If he does it the right way.
Right. I put my arm just to try to test it out. I've grabbed a hold of Jordan Sill and stood up normal and said, "All right, Jordan, drag me down." He drags me down like nothing. And then I'm like, okay, wait. And I lean way back and I put my arm up in the air and I get it right in that position. And I say, okay, Jordan, now pull easy. And now a little harder, a little harder, a little harder. And when I feel kind of not afraid anymore, I say, okay, go ahead and pull hard now.
Mm-hmm.
And my arm don't move. Did I get stronger? No.
Right, sure.
So,
yeah, I mean, you can see, as John said, there's a lot of people that try to pull through things like that, and we see that happen with Michael Todd frequently. People
Yes.
tend to rely on their power because they feel like, I know I'm stronger than this guy, so I don't care what his arm can do. I'm just going to blast right through it.
Yeah, and that's
And
a mistake.
he's really good. It is a mistake. We've seen him, people have pointed out different things about Michael Todd. He's going over to pull Pushkar, and people said, well, he lost twice to Chafee recently, and he did this and he did this. But at the end of the day, he's been winning the last match, the one that counts. And that's what's
Exactly.
So what do you think's going to happen with Pushkar? Because
I
we
think
know
he's-
Pushkar has that one powerful, incredible
Yeah.
hit straight side.
Yeah, I think he's going to lose.
Mm.
And the question for me is, I think it was a best of 5 or 6 or what is it?
Six rounds.
So over 6, for me, it's not a question of if he's going to lose. I know he's going to lose. It's just when. Will Mike beat him 6-0, 5-1, 4-2? I don't know. But the only way to beat Mike is to either do it very quickly or to know how to beat that.
Right.
And the problem with Michael Todd is, he has the same arm as all these other guys, including myself. But Michael Todd is still frighteningly strong,
Mm-hmm.
which is different. I won't say that about the other guys. I think they're strong, right? But not unbelievably.
Well, yeah,
but Michael is crazy strong.
Yeah, and you look at Mike, and if someone can explain to me how the fuck this guy does it, you can. I don't know. He sits here
Mike
like
is an
this,
amazing
way
guy.
underneath, stops people, and then somehow gets all the way up, comes through the back, and then presses. How does anybody?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
You need to have some. And Mike doesn't necessarily wait until the other guy's tired. Right? See, George
He'll
can
try.
do the same thing, but
Right.
George has to wait 27 minutes before the guy tires out.
Right.
Right? Michael Todd starts working that side pressure the second he stops the match because he's got the strength to pull it off. And that's just it.
Mm.
He trains that move, that strength. And his endurance, he trains endurance like nobody's business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even before, he obviously had that horrible left elbow injury that basically transformed
Right.
his style. But we all
Yes.
remember, maybe there's a lot of guys out there that I have to remember. There's a lot of guys out there that have started in the last 2 or 3 years that don't know that Michael Todd did not always pull that way. He was just known
Right.
as a guy who just ground it out in a hook every single match he possibly could. Like the matches with him and Marcio, the two super matches they had. He didn't do that, that bone lock thing. They just pulled like
Right.
madmen.
Yes.
He's always been that guy.
Absolutely. Yes. You're
So-
absolutely right.
Since we've moved on to this topic, what do you think is going to go on with Rustam and Hutchings?
Ooh.
That's an
Uh,
interesting
so-
one.
That's the one I want to see the most.
Oh
is that
yeah.
one.
So when that first happened, Todd, because he was going to come here, and then he called me to see if it was cool to go there, and I'm like, well, hell yeah, you got to go for Rustam. My knee-jerk reaction: Rustam is too much for him. And when I started to think about it a little more, I'm like, when those guys pulled years ago, Todd is a completely different human being that he was when he pulled him, whatever that was, 04, 5, 6, whatever it was.
100%, yeah.
But let's face it, Rustam is half the age. So he is probably not the same guy.
No.
So they've both gotten stronger. So I'm like, okay, Rustam is probably going to take this. But then I started to really think about it deeper.
Mm-hmm.
I know how much stronger Todd has gotten.
Mm-hmm.
Rustam was frighteningly strong back then because of his unbelievable training, and I won't speculate as to what else makes a man strong.
Sure.
Well, he tested positive, so you don't have to speculate
Well,
with him.
His
You
piss,
got-
his
you-
piss
He
could
didn't-
melt steel
he didn't
beams,
test
if you know what I
positive
mean.
Back then, but I agree. You're absolutely right. Good point. So he tested positive. We all know he was taking all kinds of drugs. And then he quit arm wrestling for a couple of years, and now he's been back a couple of years. It's not completely without merit to think that Rustam may only be a little bit stronger than he was back then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it depends on the quality of drugs that he's doing and what he's been training, how much weight he's put on. But we all know Todd's way stronger, and Todd's endurance is out the hook. If this match stops at all, Todd's going to win this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
I'm actually predicting Todd to win 4-2.
I think that's probably, when I think about this match, I tend to agree with that. And the only thing that really worries me is that I do, just right off the bat, looking at the two guys, if I had to pick who was stronger where, I would think Todd's arm is probably at least on par with Rustam's, but Rustam's hand might be a bit stronger than Todd's.
And which is why, in my opinion, the first match is going into a hook. But I don't know what the second match is going to do. Let's assume Rustam gets slammed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then Rustam's going to go, holy shit, I better top roll.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's assume Rustam slams him. Rustam might go, all right, that's easy. I'm going to top roll him now. So I think you're going to see some top rolling coming out of Rustam.
I think you're going to see it. I think you're going to see it the first match.
You might.
You said
That's
that
what I
last
think.
week.
And if it's in the first match, then they're going to slip. They're going to go into the straps.
Right.
And if Rustam slams him, then we'll see what happens in the second match. But if Rustam doesn't slam him and he gets hung up at all, Todd's going to win this thing.
I do agree with that. And
I can't wait to see it.
It's funny, too, because if you look at their very first match, 10-plus years ago, what happened? They both tried to top roll, slips, strap.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
you're exactly right. Because they're both. I don't think either one of them's afraid of the other one's hook, but neither one of them want to get into a death match.
Yeah.
And if they get into a death match, though, the way Todd trains, his ability to recuperate is very good.
Yeah, I think I think over 6 rounds, like with this format in particular, I think Todd is probably going, I don't care what I have to do these early rounds. Whatever I have to do to make this guy miserable. Because
I agree with that comment. I think
he's going to stay miserable.
6 rounds definitely is in Hutchings' favor.
Now,
we haven't seen Rustam in that kind of deep match for six rounds. So who knows what his endurance level is.
And the reality is we could all just be in favored Americans here, and Rustam might dump his ass.
Yeah, that's true.
He might just dump him.
Mm-hmm.
His hook is crazy, crazy strong.
And he's explosive.
And he's crazy explosive.
Yeah.
You're right. Yes. So
let's stay in that weight class for a minute, because we have also another huge match coming up in the 90 kilograms, and that's Craig Tullier and RVJ up in New England's in a couple weeks. What do you think about that one?
Is Craig Tullier and or RVJ watching this show right now?
Actually, I don't think either of them are. I don't know for sure. Usually Denise watches for Craig, but I don't think she's watching right now.
Right. Well, here's my prediction: slip, straps, Craig Tullier.
Okay.
I think RVJ still needs to really learn how to use his hand. He's learning, and he's doing a great job, but he still needs to learn how to use that hand more. They're going to slip, in my opinion, and then it's going to come down to the wrist and the arm, and that's where I'm going to go with Craig.
There's a lot of comments that people appreciate your openness, because sometimes people are like, well, I don't want to predict that match because of this or that, but it's nice to have someone speaking frankly. I'm going to take you off the hot seat, though. There's a few training questions that I would like to get. Here's one from Luke, another member of Team USA that we went to Budapest with. He wants to know about the amount of time and the intensity you need to train at to be competitive at WAF. Like, if you were going to give somebody advice to get ready for that, how would you suggest they change their training?
To get ready to be competitive or to get ready to win?
Well, he said competitive, but I think we all are going because we want to come back with medals. So let's go with winning.
If you're not going to train at least twice a day, depending on the level you're currently at. Mm-hmm. John Berzink could probably not train at all, show up to Worlds and do Vine, right? If you are, say, at the level of Luke Pulcher, okay, since it is Luke Pulcher, right, that asked the question, I assume?
Yep.
If you're at that guy's level, at that guy's age, you better be training at least twice a day to prepare yourself for the Worlds. If you're a younger person in your 20s, absolutely, you better be training twice a day, and you might entertain the thought of 3 times a day. But then you're going to get into some very specialized ways of training, because most people hear, oh my God, if I train 3 times a day, my arms would fall off. That's right, if you train the way that you're thinking in your head right now. You know, I've always told people, Bob, what should I do to get better at arm wrestling? I said, do you have people to arm wrestle with? Yeah, arm wrestle every day. And everyone instantly looks at me like you're crazy. Mm-mm. If I arm wrestled every day, my arm would fall off. That's true if you arm wrestled every day the way you arm wrestle once a week at a practice.
Correct.
Your arm would, that's not what I'm telling you to do. You know, I tell people that's the roofer scenario. If you're a roofer and you just start out and you swing a hammer all day long for 8 hours, your arm is going to be dead at the end of the day. But you got to go to work the next day. So you go to work with a dead arm and you swing the hammer again all day. And after about a week, you're able to swing it all day. Your arm's not sore anymore. And,
right.
You feel great. You know, lightweight. So that guy, he starts off with a half-pound hammer every day, then a pound hammer every day, then a pound and a half hammer every day, then a 2 pound. You see where I'm going? Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, that guy is swinging a hammer every single day and increasing his strength throughout a year of time. Same thing with arm wrestling. Arm wrestle every day at the level of swinging that hammer. Mm-hmm. And you'll strengthen those tendons and those muscles and those ligaments better, especially the ligaments and the tendons. You'll strengthen them better doing a very high volume of stuff than you will a low volume of stuff.
Yeah, and really what you're talking about, it really, when it really breaks it down, is just adaptation. Just pure physiological adaptation.
Yes, your tendons and your ligaments adapt to things better at a very high volume, lower intensity type of work, like swinging a hammer all day long. Mm-hmm. I mean, to make it just a wild example, yeah, you know, you could arm wrestle for 8 straight hours with an hour lunch. If we were all arm wrestling our 5-year-old daughters, we could arm wrestle 8 hours a day, every day, you know, and as your daughter got bigger, you get stronger.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could beat as many 5-year-olds as I want. Pretty sure. Pretty sure.
So when I say you're going to work out twice a day, you're going to do a lot of high volume stuff for one of your workouts, lower intensity. Then you're going to do other types of different types of volumes, different types of intensities. Some based on rep schemes, some based on time schemes, some based on full range of motion, some based on static, not moving motions. And they need to be incorporated throughout multiple workouts. You know, if you want to be competitive, you need to work out 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours at night, which no one does other than Todd Hutchins.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you bring him up, because when we were in Budapest, you talked about both he and John Brzenk, and that they had similar philosophies. They went about it slightly different ways, where John was basically pulling people and Hutchings was using machines to simulate pulling people, but they both were doing it every single day. And you're right. That's a point that's been brought up numerous times. I mean, Todd Hutchings tells you exactly what he does, and nobody else will emulate it because it's too fucking hard.
Exactly right. I emulated it getting ready for the 2012 Worlds with my buddy Robert Baxter, and I went down there and just crushed everybody, and it's the strongest I'd ever felt in my life. Mm-hmm. But I the older I get, I lose motivation pretty quick. So I work out real hard for 4 months and then I stop for a year, which is the problem.
Yeah, that is part of the problem. I mean,
but what I was just a funny thing is, so there's two big times me, John, and Todd Hutchins were discussing training. Mm-hmm. And we started our discussion about halfway into the bottle of whiskey and proceeded through the bottle of whiskey. We almost went to blows. Like I always say, if I could have these 2 sessions, one at my cabin in the mountains and one down at John's house, I was like, if I could have these sessions on videotape, oh my God, it is the funniest. It's the funniest thing in the world. And that's when, because they're both arguing. You do it this way. No, you do it this way. No, you do it But if you really listen to them, they're arguing the same philosophy, like I said. Uh-huh. Just one with weights, one with an arm.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I got a question from Kevin Polachek, too. I'm going to ask that one first because he thought of his before I thought of mine. Okay. We hear this question pretty much every week to people. Like, what do you think is the correct amount of rest before a tournament that you're serious about? And how did you define rest? Like, how long would you go without arm wrestling versus lifting any weights, that kind of thing?
How old is Kevin?
Kevin's a young guy. I don't know exactly. I would say Kevin's in his 20s, though.
Okay, well, if you're 20 years old, I would probably arm wrestle hard about 7 days out from the tournament. But what I mean by hard is you need to warm up, arm wrestle guys that you can control, and then you need to have 1, maybe 2 maximum effort matches that only last a couple of seconds, 7 days before the event, and then taper down from there, strictly weights or bands, preferably bands, and taper down to, on the 6 days before the event, you're at probably 80%. 5 days before the event, you're at 60%. 4 days before the event, you're at 40%, 30%. And you're actually doing a workout the day before you compete, but it's like at a 10% of whatever your maximums are.
Okay.
And then you're ready. I mean, if you look at any pure strength sport, mm-hmm. they're all doing a max about a week prior if they're young. Now, if you're 40, maybe 2 weeks out. If you're 50, depending on your level of conditioning, maybe 3 weeks out. Mm-hmm. It really depends on your level of conditioning. But the real answer to that question, everyone should be able to answer themselves. 1, keep track of all the weights that you're doing. You should know your single rep max on, say, a back pressure. Mm-hmm. You should know your single rep max on some form of hand wrist thing, right? And you should be trying to max out once a week. And if you're improving each week, then you know that a week's rest is enough to make an improvement mm-hmm. over your. Now, if you're not improving once a week,
good point.
Maybe you need a little bit of rest. But the answer to that question is always in your training logs, that if you're not keeping a training log, then you're not very serious about this sport.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right. I'm writing this down. I'm going to get a training log tomorrow.
And really what you're talking about, Bob, is you're really talking about, just peaking, right? So you're talking about when it comes to that week of what you're saying is basically just breakdown. You're talking about a deload week. That's what it's known in powerlifting, right? So
yeah,
like you said, if you can keep improving, then you're on the right track. That deload week ensures that you're almost at 102% rather than 100%, right?
Right, exactly.
The best you've ever been.
Is people they're called tapers, depending on what sport you're talking about. They're called tapering. And they've done studies, and the biggest study that I've read has been with swimmers. Because with swimmers, especially leading into an Olympic year, you taper down to the trials, right? But then you will compete at the Olympic trials, and then it's just like 3 weeks later that you compete at the Olympics. So they have tested tapers to the trials, but the taper has to be different to the trials than it is to the Olympics, because you really don't want to peak during the trials. You want to peak during the Olympics.
Yeah, you want to be in qualifying shape, not winning Olympic shape.
Exactly. So they've done different studies on tapers, and I kind of had a feeling this was going to come up, and I forget where the different tapers, here is a thing that I read, and it kind of gives you a breakdown, but they did where someone just stopped a week before or 2 weeks before. They did another guy where he just went down to 30% and went straight across at 30% for a week or two. Another guy tapered down 90%, 80%, and they compared how they all did come their Olympics and come their qualifying, and they didn't compare them to each other. These are super elite swimmers, so they know pretty precisely what their times are.
Yeah.
And they seen which one actually performed better, and it's the one that went 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20. Those tapers performed better in the Olympics.
Interesting.
With a more of a muscular endurance cardiovascular sport, not necessarily single rep strength type sports.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder.
Maximum.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a nervous system issue. You know what I mean? If you're keeping that awake, you're keeping that alive, everything's moving correctly, or sleeping correctly because of it. You're everything, right? I wonder if that's probably what it is.
That could very well be, and
that's a good question. That's going to be. I mean, it's a topic everybody talks about in every sport, and everyone has their ideas about it, and that's why people pay so much to get coaches and be, brought through that process.
But the absolute answer to that question, again, it's in everyone's logbook.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know how to read your logbooks and understand, okay, look at what I've done here, look at what I've done here with this much rest versus this much rest, you can answer your own question. On that one, you really can.
Yeah, the only thing that changes my answer, with that question when I get it asked to me is, am I cutting weight or not? Because if I'm cutting weight, I want a few extra days, just as insurance.
Right.
If I can eat anything I want, then I don't need as much.
If you're cutting weight, if your age and the level of volume that you're used to doing, if you're only used to arm wrestling once a week and that's all you're used to doing, well, how does your arm feel 5 days after your last practice? How does your arm feel 7 days after your last practice? During your training, if you arm wrestle once a week, take a week off, go to practice, and see if all of a sudden you're Superman or are you not.
Right.
And that will answer your question.
I'm going to bring up another topic that we discussed for a while in Budapest. And someone's saying they missed the single capping, double capping, no capping part of the conversation earlier. And I was just going to use that to jump off into something you said to me, Bob, which was that if you're not, practicing all these things in every angle and technique you can possibly imagine on the table ad nauseum, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because the only way to really know what works best for your arm, your hand, and your style is by trying all of those things against multiple opponents and keeping track of the results, as you just said, with the weights. But I don't know if you want to talk about that a little.
Yeah, I started off not knowing anything. I didn't cap at all because that's what it is. Then I ended up double capping everybody because of the style I was pulling, finger walking, thumb pulling, and things like that. When I decided I wanted to control a hand more, then I just started wrapping one finger instead of two fingers because I wanted to control the bottom of the hand more. If you have but yet still be a top roller. I just heard Alexei Vovoda say anyone who caps, like, that's just wrong. Why would you take away hand strength? Because if you don't, your hand is definitely stronger against your opponent if you don't cap. You'll have a better bite on your opponent.
Yeah, you can block you can block pronation a lot better.
Yes, and if they're hooking you, great. Don't cap. You'll have better control on their hand. But if they're a high posting finger walker, and so are you, then you might want to have a finger over top of your hand. You might want to have two fingers, or be able to pop your hand over. The famous Dave Patton move. Dave Patton would start with his hand, thumb like this, and he'd put pressure against his own thumb and ready, go.
Yeah, and what's funny too is what I see people do that, to this day. Obviously, Dave really, really, really perfected it. But you can almost see your hand. I can see your palm, and your hand's back slightly. For maximum me not be able to get a grip on you at all.
Exactly. So, but a funny example. Kevin Bongard. Me and Kevin Bongard pulls. If he wraps his thumb, we end up in a finger war, and I win. If he doesn't wrap his thumb, I can't pronate, and he puts me down pretty quick. All because of a single little teeny move, which changes the whole match. I mean, it's night and day change. What I specifically, I think, told you in Budapest is me and my buddy Bob Strano, we used to sit down in my basement back in Jersey, and it's like, okay, I'm going to put my hand here, go. I'm going to put my hand here, go. I'm going to put my hand here, go. Put my hand here, go. And feel all these different things. And you'll train yourself how to deal with all these different hand positions and the benefit and the downside of all of them. Yeah.
I love that. It's something that, we always play around with it, but not with the scientific approach that you discuss. And I do think it matters. And the capping thing, I think it's a transition, especially people that start off top rolling. I don't think people who hook worry about it to the same extent as we do. But it's a transition. You see people go back and forth with it. Should I cap? Should I not cap? RVJ used to tell me double capping is the stupidest thing you could ever do. So
and if I had his hand, I might think those same. If I'm a hooker, I agree. Double capping is stupid. If you're a hooker or you're trying to control the person's hand, double capping is a smart thing to do if your hand is weak. It's you can't control the other person's hand. Double cap because you can control their thumb, and you guys are going to end up in this crazy thumb war.
Yeah, or if your opponent is just stubborn and is going to hold on to you. Double capping is great. Or if you're in the strap and you just have that kind of position where double capping is simple, and I don't have to worry so much about controlling that hand because the strap's going to be my tool.
Right.
And what's funny too, Bob, is I find. I don't think people understand that you can have a bad low grip with a single cap, and you can have a super high grip with no cap. If I'm high in your palm, people don't see these things.
And if they would just try all these with their buddy, and then they would figure it all out.
Right.
It's important. Yep. There's a question coming in about, you mentioned injuries. Obviously, almost all of us have struggled with it, including both of the hosts of the show at the current moment. Yeah. So when that happens, which of course is inevitable, do you have any secrets that you use to train through injuries, or to keep training the parts of your body that you can while you're dealing with whatever injury it may be?
I would if when you pop your elbow,
for example,
you completely lose side pressure. So why not train back pressure? Why not train your wrist, pronation, supination, dumping your wrist? You can still train your hand and your wrist. Now, as far as trying to help heal the area that hurt, I'm a firm believer that you need to get blood. Blood heals everything. Red blood cells getting to an area is what heals all wounds. Mm-hmm. So how do we try to get more blood flow to whatever area you hurt? And the reality is putting it in the position that hurt it in the first place. Train doing that movement, but so lightly that you don't feel any pain, zero pain and yet you're still able to do like that, a movement with a band or something, when you hurt your elbow, supination hurts, and just for simple numbers, you can supinate 100 pounds. Great. Supinate with 1 pound and just go like this, nice and easy, and until you kind of get a little pump, which means blood is going to that area. It actually means lactic acid is building up, and then eventually the red blood cells will come in and heal them. But that's how you help promote any one particular area.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I think it's we forget that as arm wrestlers because we're used to, there's a lot of value in just movement because of ligaments and tendons have no direct blood flow, so they get it passively, and the only way to encourage that is by massaging the area or moving it. And so
yeah, exactly.
I couldn't agree with you more about that.
Exactly.
The question I was going to ask you is another one we talked about, and that's like the role that genetics plays in arm wrestling, in particular with like if you pick like the top 10 guys around the world, what kind of percentage you feel that genetics plays for those guys?
A fairly big part. Well, I'm going to say for the top 10 guys, top 5 guys in each class, it's maybe 50%, right? If there's someone in a class and he's just clearly dominating everybody, it's like the top guy and then 50 feet of nobodies and then the next guy. Okay, that guy, there's a tremendous amount of genetic ability that is in that human being. But that's not the case. Nowadays, the guy who gets 5th place in the Worlds may have very well have gotten 1st place in the Worlds if he just had a different bracket.
Sure.
I mean, we're starting to get closer and closer and closer. There's always exceptions, but so for the bulk of it, I think genetics is half of it, and training is the other half. Give me a guy with great genetics and no training versus a guy with average genetics and training. The guy with average genetics and training will win. If you still need to train like him in this day and age with the volume of people that are in our sport, you can't rely on just genetics. Perfect case in point is RVJ. That dude was, God said, boom, you're an arm wrestler. He's got good arm height for his weight class. He's got good hand size for his weight class, and not just like the distance in his palm, the length of his fingers. He's got really good genetics. I just think that he hasn't applied himself for a world of reasons,
Sure.
He hasn't been able to, and if he would truly focus, there's not many people on the planet that would beat him. But there's a lot of people right now that'll beat him that don't have the quality of genetics he has.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I do feel like if, Rob ever was in the position where he could completely commit to training and had no distractions and whatever else he needs, that a magic formula to get him triggered to train, I agree with you. And I think you're right. He's definitely one of those people that, if there was going to be a creation of an arm wrestler, it would be someone like him or, John Brzenk, or someone just mentioned Oleg Zok on the left-hand side. I mean, you can't really get any better.
That's right. That's a whole nother conversation. That is a genetic freak, right? I mean, that is a genetic anomaly.
True.
Yeah, he's probably the craziest example of a genetic anomaly in our sport. I mean, there's a lot of people that have, things going on, longer arms or fatter arms or whatever, but his power level for his weight is just insane. I mean, it's completely insane.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
So, but I don't know if you know Mike Shalhoub, but he says frequently, there's probably 100 John Brzenks walking around like in a mechanic shop or, and being an engineer or somewhere that have no idea that if they entered the sport, they would have the potential of a great deal of success because they have that, some kind of whatever it is that makes an arm wrestler strong. They have it. and they just don't know about it. And it makes you wonder, how much of that is true. And, John Brzenk, go ahead.
I completely agree. I think in order to be, John Brzenk is, in my opinion, the greatest arm wrestler that's ever lived because he did it for so long.
Yeah.
But today, pound for pound, which I hate using pound for pound because weight doesn't mean that much in our sport. You need to be pound for pound. All these top guys, Rustam Abayev, Zoloff, Sasho, all of these guys are pound for pound as strong as John Brzenk was. And
right, gotcha.
It's not just the top guys anymore that are that crazy strong. So I completely agree with Mike Shalhoub that there are tons of genetic strong people walking around like Brzenk, working in mechanic shops, doing concrete work that could, do very, very well in this sport.
Yeah, I remember we were doing this thing at Gillette Stadium for WAL when they were still around, and there were like 15,000 people there, and they had these tables set up, and a good number of them walked over. And there's one guy who was he built cars. He was there because he had some some hot rods he was displaying, and he went through just about everybody there other than Chafee and Jerry. And he had absolutely no idea what he was doing. And he was like, "Oh, this is fun." And, he was just just had like a natural position just with cranking people. And I was like, "Dude, you got to freaking train. You live 10 minutes away from Granite Arms. You need to start going over there, man. You'd be an amazing arm wrestler." He's like, "Oh, yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I will." I gave him the information, phone number, all that stuff. Reached out to him on Facebook. Not interested. But he showed up and beat some legit names. And I was like, "Who is this guy, man?" It was crazy.
Eric Spotto showed up at my practice one day and killed everybody.
Uh-huh.
And then Kevin Bongard showed up, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, here we go. Kevin, go kill this guy." No. Eric beat Kevin. I'm like, what the frick is going on? Well, then John showed up, and I'm like, oh, dear Lord, please do something, And John grabbed him, and sure enough, just held him right up, no problem, put him down when he wanted. And I asked Eric, I'm like, how did you get your wrists so strong? And his reply was very simple. He's like, I always thought it was cool to work my forearms out. I like having big forearms, so I've worked my forearms out my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And
pretty simple, right?
There you go. Simple, So,
that's crazy.
I would love to see Eric Spotto go against Scott Mendelson, and I think Eric Spotto would crush Scott Mendelson.
I'm fairly certain, honestly.
Yeah, which is funny because Eric Spotto beat Scott Mendelson's world record in the bench press, and then I think he'd kill him in an arm wrestling match.
Yeah, Eric's special, man.
Yeah.
So a lot of people still checking in and saying hi, and everybody wants to know your predictions on stuff. Every other question is like, who's going to win this match? Who's going to win this match? So obviously, they want your opinions. Let's see, what do we got here?
If I have them, I'll give them.
Do you have one on Ryan Bowen and Justin Bishop?
I don't really know Ryan Bowen.
I feel like even know him. He's not quite as well known as yet.
So I don't know.
How about Daniel Worley and Jordan Sill?
Which hand is that?
It doesn't say. I don't know.
I would think question. Left if it's Worley.
I'm assuming left.
I would too.
Probably left.
What is it?
Yeah, we'll say it's left. Yeah. Screw it. If they can say we're wrong later.
I'm gonna assume it's left.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna piss off my buddy Jordan Sill, who I've trained with for years and years and years, and without any real knowledge. I know Dan Worley, but I really don't. But I'm gonna say Dan Worley.
Okay, there you go.
Now, if it was at a practice,
yeah,
Justin Sill would kill him every time.
All right. Interesting.
Do you guys know Paul Walther?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Paul Walther is the greatest practice puller that ever lived. I have seen him slam and just crushed so many top name guys, and then he goes to a tournament and he doesn't fare so well. It frustrates the hell out of me.
Isn't that something, the mental side of the sport?
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right.
They just confirmed that it was left. Okay, here comes a whole bunch more. See, they love this with you. I've never had anybody get asked this many times who's going to win what. Bill Runkle versus Travis, right hand this Sunday.
Who?
Bill Runkle versus Travis Bagent, right hand.
Well, I'm only going to say Travis Bagent simply because I don't know Bill Runkle's name.
Okay.
If I don't know your name, dear Lord, I don't know how you'll beat Travis, but
he's good. He's
is
a
it for money?
guy.
Is this for money?
I think it's at the pull for fist thing.
I think it might be at Travis's tournament, so he could be doing it without money. So it might just be something he's doing.
Because with Travis, there's a big difference between whether there's money. If Travis don't mind losing, and so he's not going to kill himself to win either, unless there's big money on the line.
Right.
Who knows?
Well, let me ask you one, since we're on this subject. How do you think Trubin and Chafee is going to go?
Oh, dear Lord.
Yeah.
This is probably best of 5 or something like that.
6 rounds.
It's a 6-rounder again.
Well.
That damn PAL 6-round format.
Yeah. Oh, God. I'm gonna go with Trubin. And I hate saying that because me and Dave Chafee, I love Dave Chafee. We have traveled together. We have hung together. We talk on the phone. Dave Chafee, and to call it a weakness is kind of ridiculous, right? Mm-hmm. But the only way Trubin beats Dave Chafee is to take his hand. Mm-hmm. It's the only way. Now, if it was Pushkar, I would say Dave Chafee, because even though I think Pushkar will kill Trubin, it's one of these A beats B, B beats C, but C doesn't beat A.
Yeah.
Right.
Because Trubin is going to drop his knuckles, fly up high against Chafee's hand, and he's going to tire out Chafee's hand. It's just a question of when. So I would say Chafee is going to crush him the first match, but his hand might get tired. I mean, if I'm Dave Chafee, I'm slipping and I'm top rolling Trubin. Because if he tries to go side pressure, he's going to tire out his own hand. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be if this thing goes into a hook, Chafee's going to kill him.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
If it goes into the straps, I think Chafee's going to kill him. But it's a question of when does Chafee's hand get pumped. And I just think it'll happen at some point. So please, God, I want both of those guys to prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it. I want Jordan Sill and Chafee to prove me wrong.
Dave is not a guy who ever really runs to straps. I mean, that could work against him in this case because I don't know if he doesn't like it or if he just wants, if you get there naturally, then you get there, but he doesn't like to do that, like kind of Devin Morat.
Trubin's a rough guy to try to hold on to, though. That long arm, he can pull with his hand down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I said on the show before, if Trubin sets up with his hand down in the straps, I really, really hope that Chafee's been really training his posting through his wrist. Because if he does that in that strap, because Trubin's going to give that away. So just help him along. Just keep helping him do it.
Just keep your hand knuckles high and top roll right through him.
Yep. Right. And if he does that, I think if he does that, I think it's good.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool.
Give him that advice. Tell him to give him some technique.
I have no doubt I'll get a call from him here tomorrow.
I think people appreciate your honesty, Bob. I mean, first of all, when you're telling, you're not just saying, "Oh, this guy's going to lose, this guy's going to win." You're explaining why, and if they're smart, they're going to listen and start paying attention to that, and maybe adjust their technique a little bit. Yeah. Someone just posted up here that Bill Runkle just beat Mike Aiello 3-2 in a super match. So he's beating some legit guys.
Right.
I don't think he's as well known outside of the the New England, New York area yet, but he's definitely an up and comer.
How did he beat Mike Aiello? Did he
I haven't seen the match.
Hook him? Oh, okay. I'd be interested to know that.
But
yeah, no. I actually just saw Mike Aiello beat Nick Zena right-handed.
And Stephen Green.
Yes, I'd have lost money on Nick Zena. It doesn't surprise me him beating Stephen Green.
Yeah, he's just a bit
but I'd have lost a lot of money betting on
Zena.
I'd have bet on Nick Zena.
I agree. I would have bet on Zena too.
But then when I saw the match, I saw Mike Aiello, who I have not seen in a long time. That guy's gotten quite a bit bigger than the last time I saw him.
Sure.
So obviously he's gotten a lot stronger.
He beat him in a hook. Everybody's saying he beat him in a hook.
He beat Mike Aiello in a hook.
Correct.
Okay, well, that doesn't help me with any decision against Travis, because if Travis doesn't want that match to go into a hook, it won't.
John Cervantes just said that Bill Runkle also lost a match of that tournament to Storm Chelino, and Storm rolled him.
There you go.
Yeah, I have a feeling that match is probably for the charity for Fisk.
It is. The loser of that match gives money to Charles Fisk's charity. So
right. So it's not, it's not really that's not gonna be a good match to judge who's actually better on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It'll be interesting to watch. It's fun that we're getting all these matches now that WAL shut down. We're getting all these matches people wanted to see for several years finally.
Oh, yeah.
About. All right, let me ask you one more question before we let you go. What's your opinion on the whole, I don't know how much you've heard about the Devin Lorette, Dennis Cyplinkoff stuff that's going on, where they're supposed to have a super match, and Devin didn't want to do it for the same amount of money that Dennis was offered, so they ended up not having it.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts about either how you think the match would have gone or about the process in general?
If it's just a regular, normal rules match, Devin would have won or tied 3-3. You're talking about Cyplinkoff. Cyplinkoff is stronger, period.
Yeah.
It's a question of, can Devin get Cyplinkoff's hand to tire out enough to bend it back?
Mm-hmm.
And Devin Lorette is the absolute master at getting the other guy to fight for a grip to get his hand to tire out.
Mm-hmm.
If it was 6 matches, let's just start all 6 matches in a strap, then Devin's going to get his ass handed to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because Devin's power is nowhere near Cyplinkoff's. And I've talked to Devin. Devin thinks that if he can get in super deep into a hook, crazy, like really in deep,
right,
in a hook, that he thinks he might be able to beat Dennis in a hook. And I think Devin is delirious.
Yeah, I hope we get to see it soon. Devin caught a little bit of crap about it because he asked for more money, but I mean, at this point, as he pointed out, he's over 40 now. He's working on the Freedom Table stuff, and he feels like he has a right to ask for, if he's going to be traveling someplace overseas, that he wants to make the amount of money that he feels is fair. And I think that he has a right to do that. We can't expect him to go someplace just because he's getting a free plane ticket. If he doesn't want to go, he doesn't have to go.
It's ridiculous to me that all these people think these matches should happen because they want them to happen. It costs a lot of money to do these things. Mm-hmm. Devin Lorette is being paid to go places now.
Yeah.
Right? So if he's getting paid, I don't know, $5,000 to go over here and do this, why would he accept going over here for $2,000? I mean,
right.
I wouldn't necessarily do it either.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. Let's see. I just want to make sure I got all these nice people's questions in here. This feed is a little messed up tonight. I don't know what's going on with the internet. Somebody must be hacking the whole United States. But
oh God, I hope not.
You should read through these comments sometime later, Bob, because a lot of people were shouting out to you and saying hi and that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of ridiculous questions that I ignored. Sorry, guys. I don't usually ask those ones.
Oh, let me hear a ridiculous one.
Yeah, just pick out the best one.
Okay, I'll pick one out. John, you can fill in some convo while I find one of these. Let's see.
Find a good one. And Bob, selfish question. I know you've had surgeries on joints and stuff like that. I'm about to go through one myself. So when it comes to like getting a surgery, getting healed up, starting the road to recovery, what did that look like for you? How long did certain things take before you started to feel like stable again, that kind of stuff?
My shoulder took 2 years to really, I felt like, okay, strong again. My elbow, for like a ligament, that took about 6 months before I felt like I could really start to put pressure on it. What are you having operated on?
Shoulder.
What specifically?
Labrum reattachment.
2 years. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm pretty prepared for it.
I have done prolotherapy. I have done stem cell therapy. I've done plasma replacement therapy. I did a plasma replacement therapy for my elbow and my bicep tendon, and I felt like it helped a little. I did a prolotherapy shot in my shoulder, and it was like a miracle.
Yeah, really.
It helped greatly.
Interesting.
I've heard that. Is that the one where it almost irritates the area into getting attacked by its own immune system, basically?
Yes. So that's how prolotherapy got started. You put a bunch of glucose in there, and it tricks your body into thinking there was an injury. But how a body heals an injury is it brings red blood cells in. So then they started doing plasma replacement. They pulled your blood out, they spin it, they separate it,
right,
and then they inject the red blood cells in the area. Not only does it irritate it, tricking that you had another injury, your hand feeding it red blood cells. Whether the science is true or not, I don't know. I
spent some time looking into it. I actually heard about that. I don't remember the name of the guy, but he told me about it, and I talked to a couple of physical therapists up here, and basically they were like, the science is unclear at this point, and it's super expensive, so most people aren't doing it, but you can get it if you want to.
Exactly. And I've never heard any doctor tell me that there was a downside.
Yeah, there's no downside.
It does nothing for you,
exactly,
or it helps.
Yes,
there's no negative. So
correct. That's correct.
Do the negative. Yeah.
Here's one ridiculous question from Scott Wynn. He wants to know why people say Jordan Sill is so weak.
Because they haven't arm wrestled him.
Oh, good answer.
Jordan Sill is frighteningly strong. I wish he would arm wrestle in a slightly different style, but Jordan Sill is a freight train.
Yeah, and talk about a guy who has fantastic rotation without capping.
Yes.
I watch him because of that. It's something I'm trying to learn.
Yes. But even Jordan Sill, people are like, well, but do I consider Jordan Sill an elite level arm wrestler? And again, my definition of an elite level arm wrestler is the guys who are placing at the Worlds. And then no, Jordan Sill, he's not quite there, and he needs to change a little how he arm wrestles, and then he could be there.
I will ask one more of these questions that I normally skip just because you dared me. Crazy Kevin Bongard stories from Russia.
What do you want to know about them? The drunken ones or what?
That's just what was put out. I skipped over it, but
no, that's the crazy Kevin Bongard stories. Well, I'll tell you what's interesting. I would love to find the tapes. We were in Russia together. It was me, him, Bill Berzink, John Berzink, Trenton Meyer, and some other people I can't remember. Anyway, me and Kevin roomed together, and he made a video of himself talking about the daily events every single day. And they were awesome. And I'm sure they're on some...
Oh, didn't Gary have those on RMTV for a bit?
He might have, and they were awesome. But, there are really no wild, crazy... The crazy story is with John Berzink over in Russia, when after he beat some guy in the tournament, he wanted to arm wrestle him afterwards for a car. But the rules were... Yeah, we had to drink a bottle of vodka with him first. And we're all like, John, you need to do it. Do it. We'll take the car. We'll drive it all around Russia. We'll trash it, and then we'll go
leave
home.
it there, right? Exactly.
And we proceeded to drink and we proceeded to arm wrestle, but no, we did not take the guy's car and drive it all around. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you one more prediction because Marcio Barboza is watching right now, and he just said he's going over to Poland's Lottie Tour at 105 kilos. How do you think he's going to do?
Marcio, I love you, but you are going to foul out a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well,
that is the biggest problem. Marcio definitely has the ability to hang with anybody over there. 209 weight class, maybe. I don't know, 230, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think it's
231. I think.
Yeah, I think he has the ability to win, but he needs the level that they call elbow fouls there.
I know.
They do slow motion instant replay live, and he's going to get called for elbow fouls. So Marcio, if you're listening, keep your freaking elbow on the table. I'm telling you, keep it on the table. Consciously think about it.
That is the number one biggest problem that we have over here in the States in terms of pulling internationally is we don't have any events that are refereed that tightly. I mean, when Leonard does events, his table gets ref like that, but nobody else refs the way he refs. And then when you go to Worlds, like you said, everything gets called, and when a lot of people get burned.
And the WAL did no favors. It is, and not even just in letting things go, but the equipment. You know, those big, cushy, fat elbow pads. They're
right.
Anybody who's pulled on an Igor table knows that those pads are night and day.
They're rock solid. So they can see a piece of paper between your elbow and the pad. They're going to see it, and they're going to call it.
Right.
So, that's good advice, Marcio. You know, Marcio's pulled at Worlds anyway. He knows.
Yes.
But sometimes you forget. I mean, Nicholas Nanastad was just saying that he feels like the time he was training for and pulling in WAL screwed him at Worlds this year because he fouled out all of his matches. You know, he beat a couple of people, but all of his losses were from fouls.
Right, and that's if when I started arm wrestling 30 years ago, and if every elbow foul was called at every tournament we all ever went to for the last 30 years, none of us would be elbow fouling anymore.
Correct.
We would all have our elbows glued to the pad.
Right.
But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And if for the Worlds, I refer to the Worlds as scholastic level arm wrestling. So it's amateur and novice. Well, novice isn't right, but it's amateur level arm wrestling. It's like the Olympics. It's still the best arm wrestlers in the world, but they need to follow a certain protocol. And I think rules are important.
Right.
Now, for the WAL, the PAL, and things like that are trying to get television exposure, then the rules need to change. Because you cannot have non-arm wrestling people watching an arm wrestling match on TV and have it end on fouls. It's the death of television show.
Do you think arm wrestling can be on TV in a tournament style format?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's I was going to put arm wrestling on television myself. I had it all set up on a grassroots method. It was going to be very inexpensive. And then I had it all lined up, where the tournaments were going to be. Gary Roberts was videoing them, the programs they were going to be on, the investors. And it was very small money. And then I bought another business, and my focus shifted to the business, and I ended up dropping the whole ball. And I wrote that whole thing up when the UAL came around, and I gave it to Robert Drank. And it was dismissed and never used. And but now it sounds like what Travis is doing is similar to that thought process, what Neil Pickup does. I mean, the best ideas in the world are stolen, right?
Oh, sure.
Steal Neil Pickup's idea. Just steal it and do it in the States. It's a proven model.
Yeah.
Most people don't give a crap about who wins and loses until they get personally invested with the person. You know, I mean,
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, people would love to watch Travis Badgett arm wrestle. Half of them will love to watch him win, and half of them will love to watch him lose.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But they're all going to watch him.
Yeah. So. That's true. I mean, I do think there's a way to do it. I mean, you think about a lot of sports that are at the Olympics that nobody watches, like judo and wrestling. And when we think of judo and wrestling, they're fighting, and it's like, oh, this is going to be fun. But a lot of the matches are decided based on half points or fouls and not on actually someone getting thrown through the air majestically, which is what we want to see. Right. And arm wrestling has that deficiency too. And Neil's idea is so great because, they show it to us after the fact with a lot of the stuff cut out. And it's and it's, so it's very watchable. It's interesting with the no crowd noise. So you can hear them. You can hear the banter back and forth very clearly. It's great.
Yep. And then he does, quick little interviews so you do get some personal knowledge of each of the pullers.
Yeah.
You take that concept and then expand it a little bit. I mean, the money the WAL spent was ridiculous. What Robert Drank did was just ridiculous. I mean, the first event that guy put on, he spent $100,000 and was surprised when no one really showed up.
Yeah.
And I was like, of course no one's going to show up. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like WL is an exception. They actually, that's one thing they did well is they got people to show up. But most of the time when you have huge money prizes, there's a giant number of people like, well, fuck that, I'm not going. I have no chance of winning, so I'm just going to stay home.
Right.
So you end up getting a class with 5 guys, and then all of whom are like beasts, but it's a small number.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And the WAL, I actually disagree. I don't think the WAL got many people to show up at all. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had to pay all the extras to sit in the stands.
True.
Oh, you mean spectators? Yeah.
Spectators.
I was talking about competitors. I misunderstood.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, right. They had tons of competitors. I don't know if they'd have flipped their whole stage around and put it more like a stage, and taken the approach of a boxing match or a UFC fight.
Yeah.
That's much more entertaining, but you need to have the background stories in order to pull that off. Otherwise, it's boring to most people.
Right. I mean,
the
sport's almost secondary.
Sorry, John, I'm talking over you. Go ahead.
No, I just said like the sport's almost secondary at that point. You want to know.
It should be.
Right.
If you guys remember that match that Jerry Carteret and Travis had in a subway station, and the ones I was just mentioning at Gillette Stadium when there's like 15,000 people walking around, that model works because arm wrestling is super fun, and if you pick the right matches to put up when there's big crowds, people do stop and watch it. So I think you're right. If it was presented in the correct way in a palatable fashion, that was short and sweet, and the emphasis on all the cool part. It could succeed, and so far nobody has done that in the States. And you're right. If someone stole, Arm Wars' idea, it probably would work here.
It would take a long time. You can't just dive in with millions of dollars and expect to make a return on that money. You need to dive in with hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, people forget about the UFC. The UFC was an underground sport banned in most states for like 10 or 15 years before it finally broke through in popularity. And it was a rule change that did it. They changed a bunch of the more brutal rules, and it became more palatable, and people stopped banning it, and now everybody knows it.
Exactly.
Exactly. Anyway, Bob, we've kept you on a long time. I'm sure you have other things to do than talk to a couple of idiots like us. But we greatly appreciated the time, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Got a lot of comments. People were very happy to hear from you, and we definitely should do this again sometime.
All righty. Sounds good.
Yeah, Bob.
Now, don't hang up on us because I want to talk to you for a couple minutes after we say goodbye to the rest of these guys. But
okay.
Yeah,
good night, everybody. Thanks very much
audience.
for hanging out with us. Sorry for the technical difficulties in the beginning. We'll see you next week.
Later.